Hello everybody, this is Dr. Aparna. Today we are going to discuss a poem, I Too, written by Langston Hughes. Have you ever heard of racial discrimination? Do you know what is racial discrimination? When people are discriminated on the basis of their color, the skin, the color of their skin, that is called as racial discrimination. This is widely prevalent in America. In India too, we are discriminated on the basis of our caste and also on the basis of our religion, are we not? America is basically known as a racist country. Of course, over the years, that has disappeared and dissipated to a large extent. Today, we have a president who is colored. Barack Obama is the first colored American president. This particular poem reflects America in the early 1920s and 30s. Before we really jump into the poem, I'd like to tell you something about American history. The whites in America got the blacks from the continent of Africa to work for them in the cotton plantations. This was prevalent in the southern states of America. The northern states felt that slavery should be abolished because they felt that slavery was against the human rights. And therefore, around 1861, there was a civil war between the northern and the southern states. The southern states wanted slavery to continue and the northern states wanted slavery to be abolished. Under the able leadership of Abraham Lincoln, there was a civil war and of course, the northern states won. Slavery was totally abolished. But then it was abolished as per law. But then it did not go off from the hearts and minds of the people living in America. Blacks were ill-treated and they had white colonies and black colonies. They had white schools and black schools. They had white hotels and black hotels, black buses and white buses. Whites lived in their colonies and blacks were supposed to live in their colonies. Most of the blacks lived in ghettos. What are ghettos? They are slums. During 1920s and 30s, in a place called Harlem in New York, there was a renaissance. The Negroes vented their frustrations in the form of literary output. Many of them wrote poems, many of them wrote dramas which spoke about this kind of discrimination between the whites and the blacks. Langston Hughes is considered as a foremost poet who spoke against the discrimination between blacks and whites in America. This is also called as the Harlem Renaissance. This poem, I Too, actually reflects what happens in the mind of a black person and what does he expect of his white counterparts in America. This poem is not just an appeal, it is a direct attack on the whites. James Langston Hughes was born in the year 1902. He was an American poet, novelist, playwright and short story writer, and also a columnist. He was one of the earliest innovators of the new literary art, imbibing the blues, jazz, motifs and spirituality. His parents were a mixed race and he grew up in a ghetto. As I told you earlier, a ghetto is an equivalent to a slum. His father willfully expressed repugnance with the poet's dark skin. As I said, his parents were mixed. That is, his mother was black and father was white. Langston Hughes was born on February 1st, 1902 in Joplin, Missouri. His parents got divorced when he was a very young boy and he started living with his grandmother, who gave Hughes a beginning to write poetry. She encouraged him and she realized the potential of this child. She introduced him to a series of great African American writers like Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, and so on and so forth. He lived with his grandmother in Lawrence, Kansas until her death when he was 13 years old. One of his greatest influences in his later life was his stepfather, his mother's second husband, who was an abolitionist. The poems of Carl Sandburg, with an unrhymed free verse, also made a deep impact on the thinking pattern of Hughes. The innate desire for the upliftment of the African Americans inspired Hughes to produce works of a genius and launch movements for civil rights. He believed that poetry alone could liberate and symbolize a common man's voice. He was an important writer of the Harlem Renaissance, whose literary works made a deep impact on the minds of the readers. It is believed that while Hughes was working as a busboy, his talent was recognized by a lady called Vachel Lindsay, a poet of Washington. Around 1960s, Hughes' services to literature were recognized by the government. He was appointed as US State Department Cultural Emissary to Europe and Africa. Let us now read through the poem I Too, written by this great poet. I'll read out this poem for you now. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll sit at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. In this poem, I Too, the poet headlong accuses the readers. When I say the readers, I don't mean you and I, the American whites who are reading his poem. He demands equality, he demands freedom. Rather than mentioning and seeking support from the society, he doesn't meander, he doesn't beat around the bush. He straightaway comes to the point when he starts the poem. He says, I too sing America. What does that mean? I too sing the American national anthem, just like my white counterpart. And what was the American national anthem? Star Spangled Banner. That is the American national anthem, which is sung by all Americans. And what does America represent? It represents equality, fraternity, brotherhood. What is America? It is an amalgamation of various races and cultures, people staying together. But then he questions, why aren't blacks given equal rights as the whites in America? And that is where he starts. I too sing America. I too sing the song of America. I am the darker brother. What do you mean by darker brother? The color of the skin is dark. You have white Americans and blacks. And as I was telling, blacks were ill-treated. So he starts saying, I too sing America. That is, this anthem is sung by both the whites as well as the blacks. But then blacks are not given equal treatment. They are ill-treated in America. And then he goes on to say, I am the darker brother. Why does he call himself the darker brother? Because of the color of his skin. And how is he treated? The next line shows, they send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. Because most of the blacks were slaves in the houses of whites. They used to work for the whites. They used to work in the kitchen. They used to clean the houses. They were treated well by the whites, no doubt. But then, when the whites had friends coming over to their house, these people were asked to go and sit in the kitchen and eat. They were never allowed to share the same dining space or the dining table. So that's what he says. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. He is not feeling bad that he is having to sit in the kitchen and eat, because he says, I laugh and I eat well. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't mean that it doesn't pain him. It definitely pains him that he is being discriminated. He definitely feels bad that he is being asked to go and sit in the kitchen because he is black in color, just because of the color of his skin. But then he takes it in his stride. That is his goodness, that is his greatness, because he hopes for a better future in America. He hopes that America will open up. He hopes that America will recognize the blacks as true citizens of the country. So he laughs and he says, I sit in the kitchen, I eat and I go strong. What does he mean? Does he grow physically strong or does he grow mentally strong? I think both ways. He grows strong not just physically, but then he grows strong in his hopes, in his aspirations, and in his love for his country. He knows that perhaps somewhere down the line in future, he will be able to sit with the whites in the same dining table and eat. I eat well and I grow strong. So there is definitely a pain, but then there is also a hope that he will grow strong, because the attitude of the whites will definitely change for the blacks somewhere down the line. Let us move ahead and see what the poet has to say further. He says, tomorrow I'll sit at the table. When company comes, nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Tomorrow doesn't really mean the next day. He says somewhere in future, and he's sure of that. He's very positive about that. He knows that things will change and he hopes that things will change, because Harlem Renaissance was about just that, equality of blacks, the rights of the black people. And that is what everybody sat up and realized, that yes, blacks should be given equal rights. So he says, tomorrow I'll definitely sit at that dining table. I'll definitely sit and eat with the friends, and when company comes, when friends come, when relatives come, nobody will then dare to tell me that go and sit in the kitchen and eat. So he has a confidence. He is absolutely certain that a day will definitely come when he will be able to sit with the white brothers and he will be able to eat at the same dinner table, and he will not be sidelined or sidetracked or asked to go somewhere else and eat his. So that is a hope. That is something that he lives forward. That is something which he looks forward to. And that is the best part about this poem. He says, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. Now, why does he say these two lines? The whites will definitely realize the beauty that lies in the blacks. That does it mean that they will see the beauty of the skin color? Does it mean that they will suddenly one day get up and realize that okay, a black man also looks beautiful? No, I don't think he means just that. He means that somewhere down the line the whites will realize the real beauty that lies in the hearts of black men, not just black men, the hearts of all the people that live in America. People should not be discriminated on the basis of their skin color. People should not be discriminated because they are blacks. So the beauty of a person does not lie outside. They say beauty is only skin deep. What is beauty lies within us. It is there in our heart. It is there in our character. It is there in our personality. So that's what he's trying to say. They'll see how beautiful I am, and then they'll be ashamed. They'll be ashamed of what? They'll be ashamed that they did not treat the blacks properly. They'll be ashamed that they sidelined and sidetracked the blacks. They will be ashamed that they did not give equal rights to the blacks in America. Who are they here? They are the white people. So a day will definitely come when he'll sit on the same dining table with his white counterparts and he will eat dinner with everybody, and they will all realize that what a wonderful and what a beautiful person he is, and what beauty lies in his heart and in his mind. They will finally accept him as one along with them in this great country called America, which talks about liberty, equality, fraternity, and so on and so forth. So he is fighting for the rights of the black people, and this is what he tries to bring out in this poem. He says a day will definitely come when the blacks will have the same rights as the whites, when black children can go to the schools where white children go, when blacks can move in the buses that whites move in, and so on and so forth. In the year 1960s, Martin Luther King followed the footsteps of Mahatma Gandhi and finally got the rights for the blacks, and he followed the same satyagraha and non-violent means for getting these rights for the blacks in America. He also won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 1964. Of course, the Harlem Renaissance occurred much before that, before the time of Martin Luther King Jr. But that was a beginning, that was the starting, that was the genesis when the blacks fought for their rights. Let us now understand the central idea of this poem. Langston Hughes wrote this poem at a very young age. It is said that he was once traveling from Europe to America, and he was denied the travel because of the color of his skin. And that is what prompted him to write this poem, I Too. I am sure you have heard of various incidents that happened in South Africa with Gandhiji. Gandhiji was once traveling in the first class compartment in South Africa, and he too was denied travel because of the color of his skin. He was asked to travel in the third class along with the others, even though he had a first class ticket. Things like this, incidents like these, definitely prompt people to do things that are wondrous. And that is exactly what prompted Langston Hughes to write this poem, I Too. Have you heard of the poet Walt Whitman, who is considered as the representative poet of America? It is said that Walt Whitman wrote so much about America that he really revered his country. Now, in one of his poems, I Hear America Singing, he talks of the length and breadth of America, the people of America, the worker classes, and all the population that lived in America. He glorified the country. This poem, I Too, is actually a response to that poem, I Hear America Singing. This is a response to that poem by Langston Hughes. He talks of an America that talks about equality, fraternity, brotherhood. He questions that. It is a poem wherein a black man questions his rights in the American soil. It is a poem where the black brings out his angst, his anger, his frustration, and he talks about how he is treated in his own land. Though the blacks were brought from Africa, America became their homeland. Then why should they be ill-treated here? After 100 years of the civil war that occurred in the year 1861, almost after 80 years or 100 years, the blacks were not given their rights. What is the use of stating that slavery is abolished when blacks are ill-treated in the country which they think is their own? And this is exactly what Langston Hughes is trying to tell in this poem. he is trying to put forth that frustration which a black man feels when he is working in the house of a white man. Yet he has a positive attitude to life, yet he hopes that a day will come when he will be able to enjoy this freedom, this equality, this liberty. Martin Luther King Jr., in one of his speeches, which goes down in history as one of the best speeches ever spoken by anybody, in his speech he says, "I have a dream," wherein he says that he dreams that people in America, that blacks and whites in America will live like brothers. And that is what is reflected in this poem too. Of course, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about that, gave that speech in the year 1961. And this is much before that. There was a movement from the black side where they wanted equal rights, where they wanted equality, and they wanted to be treated like brothers. And that is why the Harlem Renaissance came into existence, and black writers started writing poetry about the blacks, and they started telling them the kind of living conditions that they had. And this is brought forth in this poem so beautifully by Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes wrote around 35 books. He wrote a lot of poems also. As I was telling, when Langston Hughes was young, he wrote a lot of radical poetry, and he was highly inspired by communistic ideas, which were obviously not liked by many critics, and he came under a lot of flack. In fact, he had to revise and rewrite and had to really soften his poems a lot in the later days. Langston Hughes goes down in the history as one of the greatest poets that America has ever produced, the greatest colored poets that America has ever produced. Racism is definitely a black mark on any society, on any country, and that should not be encouraged. Any kind of discrimination is not good, whether it is on the basis of color, whether it is on the basis of religion, whether it is on the basis of caste. All human beings are born equal. We are all the children of God, and we have the same blood that flows in everybody's veins. So why should we be discriminated on the basis of our color? Why should we be discriminated on the basis of our caste or religion? We should never be racist. We call America a racist country, but then are we not racist ourselves? Literature opens up such kind of avenues. It makes you to think about life. It provokes you to think about what is happening around us. That is the beauty of literature. That is the beauty of poetry. Poetry reflects life. This particular poem reflects the situation of America during the time Langston Hughes was writing. He makes people to sit up and understand that yes, blacks are equal to whites. He makes people to understand that blacks should have equal rights like the whites. And it makes us to understand that we should never judge a person by his appearance. We should never like a person by his appearance. There is more to a person's appearance than the color of his skin or the beauty that lies. Because beauty and color are only skin deep. What lies within us is most important. You may make a great impression in your class if you are really good looking. But then, if you do not have a good personality and a sound character, I am sure you will lose out on friends. Friends stay with us because we are genuinely good. Friends love us because we go out and reach out to them. That is the essence of humanity. We must love each other irrespective of our color, caste, religion, race, sex. Let us understand this from this poem. This poem gives us that moral. This poem makes us to realize that everyone is equal in the eyes of God, and God created everyone equal. So why should we discriminate each other? Why should we hate each other on small issues? These things don't matter at all. For humanity to survive in the long run, for humanity to appreciate this beauty around, for the humanity to appreciate this world, it must realize that it can do so only with love, not with hatred. Dear students, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this poem. I have provided with a lot of web links and references. Please go through them. Please read more literature on this. Please read more literature written by Black poets. I hope you will enjoy reading that also. Just don't concentrate on one poem that is there in your syllabus. There is much more to literature than the poems that are there prescribed for you. Do a lot of reading, enjoy literature, enjoy poems, and broaden your horizons. Thank you very much.